Hey guys and gals, welcome back. Today we're going to do our finishing touch on our way to Cold Wars 2012 with a little tour of Gettysburg battlefield, and it was amazing. And wow, all I can say is when we got back to downtown Gettysburg for dinner, I looked at Rob and I told him, man, I feel numb. Right, we've been to Antietam earlier in the day. We finished up at Gettysburg as the sun was coming down. And I tell you, what a huge, huge impact it made on me. And I cannot wait to get done with my American War of Independence 15 millimeters so I can go right into 15 millimeter American Civil War. You guessed it. I've got turned on with Civil War era, and that's going to be my next project here on the channel. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start breaking down the video for you so I can explain what's going on in each segment. Now here we are coming up to the new, improved, apparently, Gettysburg Visitor Center and Museum. You can see it's huge. What a great job. And you can see there it's 9 to 5. When we were there, it was mid-March. It's actually kind of an interesting time to go because everything is still in dormancy, which is kind of a fitting setting for a Gettysburg battlefield, which was the area where so many people died. So here we are coming up. You see how nice the visitor center. It is super, super nice. You come in, you got an area that's off to the right. You'll see here in this a little bit where they have a 360-degree painting of the battle. And you can see here we got some period uniforms on display. Very nice. You can see a sample of that painting behind you, a 360-degree painting. And here we go with some of the arms that were present at the Battle of Gettysburg. We've got the carbines that would have been carried by artillery, cavalry. Well, artillery could have had them probably too. We've got our sidearms, revolvers, some of the insignia that were found around the battlefield. We also have buttons, belt buckles, all those types of accoutrements. And here there's the large theater you got to pay extra for, but you go in, it's got a 360-degree painting of the battlefield. Here's some of the instruments that were present at the battle, and more weapons. You had shotguns, you know, some of the Confederates, I'm sure they had whatever they could get. And this was interesting too, the ordnance that was found and present at the time of the battle. Pretty gruesome stuff. Lots of carnage. So here we are on would be the far right flank of the Union, the first day of the battle. And looking out towards the west flank. Now here off in the distance back there, you can see the steeple there off on the right, and up on that ridge up there. That is the famous Seminary Ridge, the Lutheran Seminary. That Meade would have been up there in the cupola, surveying the battle as it unfolded. Now you can see here we're walking off towards these woods where there was a lot of heavy fighting here on the Union right flank. We're coming up here on the Pennsylvania Regiment Battalion was over on this little slope here, fighting the Confederates as they advanced. You can see here, it was interesting, these memorials, some of them have been there for so long, since the late 1800s, you've literally got the engravings are starting to wear off of the markers. So there was a lot of carnage down in those woods. Yeah. So you can see there the 151st Pennsylvania Infantry was holding that position as the Confederates came up. Now, as many of you know, at the end of that first day, the Confederates ended up taking Gettysburg and the Union fell back. But you can see if you go past these trees off in the distance straight ahead, That was the extreme right flank, where some Union cavalry was active over there and were pushed back by the Confederates. And we're coming up on a very special spot here where one of the Union generals was literally shot in the back of the head, leaving his fiancée grieving. He was soon to be married, and his body was carried into town after he fell from his horse. He was pretty famous. You can see there on the marker, you can read. And yeah, it was just, you know, John Reynolds was his name, but man, you just really, you can feel it now. My supposition is this tree to my left and the one off to the right there were witness trees. That's trees that were present at the battle. Now here we are back over. Now Rob, when we went, he said, where are the two most top places you want to go? And I said Devil's Den and Little Round Top. So here we are, there's Little Round Top, and here's Devil's Den. Now I'm going to show you guys walking up this path here to show you how rugged it is getting up there. I was amazed at the kids scurrying around on the boulders. I'd love to ask Greg of Little Wars TV, since he was a tour guide here for years, how many injuries and or deaths occur here over the years with these kids, and also adults, you know, scurrying around on top of these giant boulders that were deposited by the glaciers, you know, probably hundreds of thousands of years ago. There's a kid, see, jumping up onto the rocks. I just, makes no sense. But here we go, up the very top of Devil's Den, and you can start to see as we approach now that large, beautiful tree. I'd love to see it with its foliage on it. That is definitely a witness tree. It was there at the time of the battle. So I'm sure if you cut into the tree, if it ever had to be cut down because of death or whatever, you would find rounds in the tree, more than likely. Now here are the Parrott guns. I believe it was a New York battery up here on this ridge up above Devil's Den, and as you look out there across those fields, that was Longstreet's division of that part. The Confederate far right flank was the famous Texan brigades, and they came up and they took Devil's Den. Those guys were tough nuts. So just, you know, surveying from the top up here now. This, I forget honestly what that hill is called. I'm still learning, but that was a position that the Confederates also took to stage their attack onto Little Round Top, which was literally a fortress, right? Longstreet did not want to take it, and there was another Confederate general, I forget his name, he also did not want to take it. He was actually the one that actually carried it out. But yeah, you see here it's the 4th New York battery, artillery battery. So yeah, it looks like they held it to about 5 p.m. I guess. So you know, you're looking up there. It's a pretty formidable position. The Confederates and Longstreet wanted to continue to flank that position and come around and just bypass that hill, but Lee wanted it taken. He wanted to eventually capture. There was an artillery battery up there. You'll see here in a little bit, and they wanted to capture that, obviously, and they could have a fire, enfilade fire down to the Union right flank. But you'll see here as we get up to the top. Now this is the very top, and you can see these large boulders and kids and adults scurrying around on top. How high up this is. And it's like this, they act like it's a jungle gym, you know, that you play on in the school ground, but this is a, you know, hallowed ground. It should not be a playground, but you know how things are these days. But I was shocked to see even adults climbing around up there. Case in point, those two individuals right there were scurrying around on the rocks. It's just, you know, beyond stupid. So if you go there, guys, please keep your kids off the rocks. Not only will they get injured, or could get injured. Now this is the famous spot where one of the Confederate sharpshooters was literally, his body was taken up there and posed for a photograph. Pretty morbid. But that's who, when the Texans took this area, they turned it into basically a sniper position to snipe up onto the Little Round Top, that position. So it's pretty famous. One of the most famous photographs of the Civil War is taken right here. Now here we go. We're going up to the Maine, or the Massachusetts, the famous Massachusetts regiments that were holding this far left flank of the Union, or the Federal troops. And here we are coming up onto the ridge. Now this would have been the view the Confederates saw as they were trying to come up. And there's the famous position of the 20th Maine. If you've all watched Gettysburg, the movie, I kind of like it so-so. Some pretty bad acting in it, actually. And Tom Berenger's beard was ridiculous. But you can see the position up here, they had piled some stones up to take their positions and looking down to where the Confederates would have been coming up. And they also moved around right on the other side of this ridge. They kept trying to outflank them and move up onto that ridge. Now here we go, we're starting to move up onto Round Top proper. I call it the castle. It's basically a lookout tower. Another marker for the tenacious 20th Maine. Gotta hand it to them. They fought pretty valiantly until they started to run out of ammunition. But the Confederates fell back and gave up the position to the Federals. And here's the famous "Hold the ground at all hazards," which was given by the Federal general who came over there to establish that far left line. So he knew it was important to hold that hill. And we're making the approach up, and again, here we go. We had a lot of tours with probably junior high school age kids scurrying around on this lookout tower. It's just accident waiting to happen. And here's the view from Little Round Top, guys. Pretty famous. I was not expecting this. It was different than what I pictured in my mind with all the photos I'd seen over the years. But I can say that when I got to the top, I looked down and said, I cannot believe they were ordered to take this hill. I can see why. It's a contentious point with Gettysburg historians, whether or not Longstreet could have flanked this position and possibly taken the hill. It's hard to say. Now here's General Warren. He was in charge of basically like the engineers. He was an engineer. He was in charge of, he had a lot of power in the Federal forces to move around artillery units and for making emplacements and things like that. And he knew that this was an important spot. Obviously, you can command a great sight of the enemy moving and also hold as like an anchor this left flank of the Union forces. And here we are, we're actually moved back down off the hill and gone towards more the center of the battlefield where this is the famous Pickett's Charge area. We have a little group of woods over here. We had some heavy action right here, and this is technically called the high water mark, meaning that this was as far into the Federal lines that the Confederates had gotten. Pickett's Charge just didn't work. They had a fence row that was in their way. The artillery barrage they thought had dealt a blow to the Federal forces did not. The Federal troops had laid down on the ground and were just waiting to shoot at them, basically. So yeah, it was pretty interesting to see all of this in person. So if you've not been to Gettysburg battlefield, I highly recommend you go. Especially downtown Gettysburg is very interesting. They do have a toy soldier shop there in town that's interesting. Lots of great restaurants and lots of great shops. So thanks for coming along, guys, and I want you to stay tuned for the next video. It's going to be our coverage of Cold Wars 2019. Ciao.